I mean, it brings back memories for me of Hale-Bopp when it
Mm-hmm.
came. I'm at Hale-Bopp when it came through in the 90s. It's so powerful to look up in the sky for a couple of weeks or more, perhaps, to see this thing shooting across our night sky. It really brings this sense of kind of connection with all that is out there. And this Three Eye Atlas story is just really, really nuts. In my Egypt tours, I've been doing talks on Oumuamua
Mm-hmm.
since 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and comparing them with the Edfu creation texts back, I
Yes.
don't know, gosh, 2005, six. I had quote unquote decoded the Edfu creation text and noted that they actually are just talking, I think about as the source material for Plato's Atlantis story.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Nat Geo went to Egypt with me in 2006 for an episode of a show called Atlantis, Is It Real? To shoot me down, to dispute
Mm-hmm.
that connection. And so as my thinking developed on the Edfu creation text over the years, and then Oumuamua comes along, there are some very strange references in the Edfu creation text to what appears to be, or what could sound like, at least it did to me, to like a von Neumann probe, an AI probe. And then all of a sudden, Avi Loeb comes along and starts identifying Oumuamua as a von Neumann probe, and
Mm-hmm.
now also Three Eye Atlas as a probe. So I think there could be something to that aspect of it, and I think the ancients were trying to alert us that there's these probes that have been coming around for a very long time and might in fact have been responsible for the origins of Egyptian civilization and maybe even other civilizations too.
Yes.
I think actually because it's doing a bunch of weird stuff, you're not going to be able to get a good look at it till after it does its perihelion, which means going to come past the sun, and then when it's on its way out is when we're going to get its best look at it, our best look at it. What do you think about this thing before we move on to the rest of the stuff? What are you thinking about this thing?
Yeah, I'm just kind of going with the facts that are at hand. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
speculation, so much fear that gets put on top of this,
Yes,
and that
yes.
really concerns me. And because people are like looking for attention, or maybe they think they have
Mm-hmm.
a valid perspective, but we simply don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very clear that we're in a new era here with these interstellar objects that are passing through. And again, I have an article on my website, williamhenry.net, called Oumuamua and the Ancient Egyptian Astro Chickens. I mean, it sounds like a crazy title or maybe a band name, but it looks at, as I mentioned a moment ago, these probes, or the possibility that Oumuamua and maybe Three Eye Atlas are actually probes that were in
Mm-hmm.
fact known to the ancients. So
Sure.
I'm on the edge of my seat like everybody else.
Yeah, me too, because the ancients would have gotten a look at something like this. Supposedly, you'll be able to see it with your naked eye at a certain point. And so they would have been able to see it. They could measure the precession of the equinox down to a degree every 72 years. They definitely would have been able to see something like that. And we're living through those times. So they're pretty exciting.
So you had mentioned Nat Geo, that was back in 06, and they were kind of trying to make things, they were trying to make you look bad. Let's just be honest here.
Oh,
But
it was a real lesson for me because they have a narrative, and the
Mhm.
Atlantis story back then, um, Graham Hancock, Robert Bauval,
Yeah,
Andy Collins,
everyone
and
was
all,
getting it.
they had talked about the Edfu creation text, but because you couldn't say the A word in Egypt at that time, Atlantis, they never really went and hit it on the head. And I did. And then when Nat Geo found out about it, they kind of flipped their lid. I mean, they were going to do everything they possibly could to sever this possible connection between Plato in the Atlantis story and the Edfu creation text, and it was a shocker to me to see how they actually operated and what their intention was actually to do, which was to completely dispel that notion. And now here we are, 20 years later, and it's just part of the vernacular. It's every time I turn around, someone's saying Edfu creation text is the Atlantis story. It's like, yeah, that's correct. It absolutely is.
It's part of the mythology now, basically. It's
It
in the
is.
ethos now.
It absolutely. It's so fascinating. So, I'm not again trying to come from an ego perspective. I'm just talking about a timeline here of
Yeah, for sure.
something that happened to me. I wrote my book called Starwalkers and the Dimension of the Blessed, which was about my decoding or interpretation of the Edfu creation text as the Atlantis story, and it was a really important bit of my my undertaking or my work back in the early 2000s. So again, it's really gratifying to see that now that those seeds that were planted then are now bearing some really profound fruit.
Yes, yes. That's great. And then moving into the next segment, bearing fruit. Without revealing too much, would you like to give us a little preview of what topics you may be covering at the Quest this December?
I'll be happy to. Robert has requested that I talk about psychedelics. And so my talk is going to be called Lost Consciousness, Psychedelics in the Ancient World. This is a really huge missing piece that I've been looking at actually for about a decade or so. Going to Egypt, I mean, I've been to Egypt 31 times, leading tours since the early 2000s, and really started to pay attention to the plants. Every time you're in the temples, you've got this exchange going on. The gods are saying, "Here you are. Here are these plants," and some of them are medicinal. Most of them are medicinal. It's plant medicine. It's psilocybin mushrooms, most notably. It's Syrian rue. It's things like this that you'll see in these scenes. And what I started to notice is that these plants were really the gift of the gods. And if you wanted to communicate with the gods, they have to kind of maybe utilize some of their plant medicine. And so I started just really documenting that. And we'll be talking about it further, including some of my unique kind of perspectives or takes that have come into my awareness the past couple of years during my Egypt tours.
That's fascinating. And we appreciate that little sneak peek reveal. Psychedelics are one of the topics that Dave and I are deeply fascinated by as well. It's something that we take seriously, and we try to approach it with a mature perspective and give people a well-rounded information about what that entails.
Yeah, I mean, it's no coincidence that in our age of AI, that we're in an age of expanding consciousness, and plant medicine is now rising as well. And it's a very important key to many of the ancient myths. And of course, Graham Hancock has gone down this path with his book Supernatural and others, especially focusing on ayahuasca. But it really is true to me that this is the key to unlocking the ancient mind. And in my own personal experiences, the Egyptian pantheon, the Egyptian gods are practically the chamber of commerce of the psychedelic world. They're the meet and greeters that you encounter in that space. And then you can talk with them, you can ask questions, you can discover things through your interactions with them in that mind space.
I'm glad that we're doing all these conferences during times like this, like AI and all the advancements and things that we're going further with ancient history and that kind of thing. What are you working on? Your most recent book, is it called Secret of Sion, Jesus' Stargate, 2023? What's going on right now besides the Ancient Aliens live thing?
Well, I'm leaving for Egypt again on Tuesday. So
Okay.
I'm really excited about that. I'll be following up on some of the research that I've been doing. My specialty in Egypt are the resurrection mysteries, especially what I call the Osiris device. It's a very technological looking device on the walls of the Temple of Seti at Abydos. And I think it has connections with what we would consider to be a Tesla device today. And possibly even not just a resurrection machine, but maybe even a form of ancient AI. I mean, the descriptions that the Egyptians had of this thing are absolutely bizarre, but only make sense in the context of modern understanding about AI. And I actually look at this device as possibly being the device referenced in the Edfu creation text, this relic that was imported from another realm, and help them to manifest this civilization, the island of the egg, as they called it, that was destroyed by cataclysm. So I'm really focusing on that right now. I'm finishing a book. I might even have it ready for the conference. It's called The Psychedelic Christ, The Lost Dose of the Son of Man, which is looking at the psychedelic thread running through Christianity, actually going back to early Judaism. There's been some really interesting books written about this. Dan Mercure, and Psychedelic Gospels. Then you've also got the John Marco Allegro work, but mine is a little bit more of a deep dive into it, and recognizing that perhaps we can even bring back the original psychedelic sacrament in our time, or that we are in fact on the cusp of doing so.
So part of what you're going to be talking about at the conference is related to the new book then?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm right on the edge of finishing it, and hopefully we'll have it ready for the conference. If not, I'll most definitely will be sharing some of my references about it, and especially the interface of psychedelics and technology in the ancient world, because they seem to go hand in glove. And this is something, actually, I just have to mention, I've kind of resisted the psychedelic aspect for a while. I talked about, I mentioned that Osiris device story a moment ago. Well, I mean, back in the year 2000, I was giving a talk about all this, and I had a very famous mycologist, a mushroom expert, in my talk, and he said, I'm showing a lot of this Egyptian symbolism and the technology that we perceive on the temple wall. And he's laughing at me. He's like, William, when are you going to wake up and realize that everything you're talking about is a mushroom? And I just sort of cracked up at that, but then started collecting a library of books and looking at it more deeply, and came to realize, wait a minute, that there's a lot of truth to that it really is a key to the lost consciousness of the ancients, that they were able to then unlock aspects of their mind and consciousness that we are now beginning to rediscover. And I think that's a really important element of this conversation.
That's the second time you use the phrase unlock or key to unlocking something. And I think that's an important aspect to mention. So part of this sort of modern renaissance or reawakening we have, where people are approaching these psychedelic substances in a respectful and reverent way, the point is that these earth substances, these earth medicines, are not the end goal or end game. It is a key or a way to unlock and open a portal through which we can ascend and pursue our higher consciousness. It's not the be all end all, is to find out which thing to take that lets you see the other things. That's not the whole point, and that's not how our predecessors treated them. They respected them.
I agree. I mean, it was a 100% sacred experience when they were utilizing these substances or these molecules. And the whole idea was that originally they were the gift of the gods. And it comes down to kind of a recognition of, well, who are we to deny the gift of the gods? Say, oh, no, thank you. We're really not interested in that. So it's a very important part of the conversation for me. And again, I'm acknowledging, following in the footsteps of some really great thinkers in this area, and recognizing that, hey, we have a tremendous opportunity in our culture right now to really take a dramatic leap forward. And I know that psychedelics are going to play a huge role in that.
Subscribe to Mike and Dave's Multiverse on YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble today.